first one is for Mr. Arun Rao. The question is, do you feel public-private partnerships would contribute effectively in contributing to development of airport infrastructure? And the second question is, uh, you pointed out an example of Changi Airport maintenance having been better under government control. Do you feel that PPP can solve this?
That's a good question, slightly twisted in a way. I did not say that the Changi Airport functioned better under the government control. I said it was working well, but it's working equally well, if not better, now as a privatized airport. Yes, PPE is or what is public-private PPP. Public-private participation is the formula that is being used. Definitely, it's a way to go because now there is a lot more awareness of the people as to what their own travel needs are and what could be done better, because before you try to get some sort of a small help at the government controlled airports, it was very difficult to talk to anybody. Now it's a different situation. But because of the fact that they need to be more proactive, they need to be more safety oriented, focused, and perform better. So they don't want a question. They'll have the answers ready in a way. They'll provide you everything that you need. So that's how the privatized airports have been working well. That's the way to go.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question is for Professor Anna Masuti. The question is, if regional solution to deal with air sovereignty issue is undertaken all over the world, what could be the possible ways to avoid the problems of regional integration as we see at the WTO level?
As I said, currently I don't see any concrete solution apart from regional solutions. If you see, European Union is promoting initiatives also through the negotiation of a global air services in order to give more opportunities to the European air carriers, with some limits, because we know that in the bilateral agreement with the United States, the cabotage rights are not recognized. So it's not an easy task. Maybe the WTO maybe would be the best solution, because we know that ICAO doesn't have this task. So, and ICAO, in an important conference which was organized in 2013 and also later discussed about this problem, but now we don't see any concrete results. So regional solutions plus the dissemination of this will intention by the organizations would be the best solution. I have a question to Mr. Roa, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, because you talk about the privatization of airports and so on, and I have seen during the lockdown that states, also Italy, for example, they supported financially airlines, and they intervened in favor of the airlines, but not for as much as the airlines in favor of airports. Especially in my country, in Italy, the airports did not receive anything compared to the airlines. And they are in the process of, and they are mainly private, so there are also airports which belong to states anyway, but they are under privatization. The process started years ago. Do you think that in a situation like this, that we are now, the privatization could reduce the support by the states? Because that is something that I'm noticing. For example, now we are thinking in in Italy, for example, we are thinking to use the instrument available through European regulations, which establish that it's possible to finance airports or it's possible to finance airlines through the public service obligations, for example. And now we are in a situation where the airports have to guarantee the public transport. So we have to find legal solution in order to ask the government to grant something in order to support airports. And do you think that this process of privatization could in some way make less attention of the government to the airports?
That's a very, very good question. And you have actually come out with some suggestions already, which are very, very valuable. Yes, because I'm not working for any airport here, I'm a freelancer, I'm just a consultant post-retirement. I do not have information actually if they have been trying to get a grant from the government at this point in time, have been trying, because I do know that there is a separate body called the AERA. Dr. Moses George is going to speak next. Probably he will be able to answer a little more. That body is looking at the Economic Regulatory Authority of the airports, and they probably may be already considering, if they have not already taken any action, to give some sort of a help to the airports as well. The fact is, yes, this pandemic has hit everyone, airlines, airports, travelers, everyone. So they need to definitely be given some sort of a support. And I completely agree with you. And it's a good idea. In fact, I think whoever it is, you can take it up even at one notch higher to make it really happen, and let everybody else sit up and take notice that the airports also need some help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
I may intervene in between. I think a question has been posed to Professor Anna Masutti about the WTO's the role. Since I also teach WTO law, and Ishwani knows about it since she has been my student only. So let me actually clarify on this issue. I'll just take a minute on this. WTO law, if you look into that, the GATS, General Agreement on Trade and Services, excludes actually the air traffic rights. So there is a separate annex on the air transportation, which basically excludes it from the purview of the GATS. So that is why, even if you have the regional integration, I don't think actually it would be a problem under the WTO regime, and it would not in any way contravene with the WTO norms. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
We'll take one last question, which is for Mr. Arun Rao once again. That is, how do you foresee employment happening in the privatization? Are there any specific laws for employment?
Okay, let's look at it very impartially. Every airport operator, of course, would like to have the right kind of people, and only that many that are necessary for functioning, because he doesn't want too huge an army to be feeding, So that's the number one fact. The second thing is, if somebody is competent, the privatized operator will not hesitate going that little extra mile to pay a little extra to get that competent person on his role, because he wants efficiency, competence, and performance. So from the point of view of employment, yes, privatized airports would have opportunities, provided the competence is guaranteed, performance is guaranteed, and your approach is good. You have all the necessary qualifications and experience. For the once upon a time, I was also a guy looking for my first job, and it's not easy for somebody who's looking for his first job. It is a bit tough. But since those days, things have come around a bit, where in the education system, at least in India, I know, you have sort of a internships or some sort of a training program that's available. You can be attached to somebody, and then so you do gain some initial work experience. With that, you'll be able to get into a smaller, it's not necessary that we want to be working for Singapore Changi Airport or London Heathrow. I'm talking about the top level airports all the time. We should be able to accept somewhere else and move on step by step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. There's one more question, I believe, for Mr. Srinivasan Raman. That is, how are the people trained to get these specification to maintain the safety in the aircrafts?
Okay, it's a very lovely question. Now, safety in the sense of aircraft, we can take into many perspectives. Safety starts in the ground, not in the aircraft. That is what we people say. Safety starts on the ground. Right from the time the cargo comes in, when it is security, then it comes into the warehouse, then it is moved on to the ramp, and from the ramp it is loaded into the aircraft. Now, then it is now taken care by the cabin crew and the pilots who are flying the aircraft indirectly, not directly. Now, coming to the training part is, every person when he joins an organization, they are trained on different aspects. Now, these aspects may fall into one or many annexes of ICAO. For example, for a cargo person, Annex 17 and Annex 18 are very important. And to some extent, Annex 19 also, safety management. So, and when it comes to the documentation part, facilitation, Annex 9 becomes very important. Carriage of dangerous goods is a very important aspect for any person working in the airline at the airport, maybe a passenger handling staff or a ramp agent, cargo warehouse personnel, the acceptance personnel, loader. Everybody must be trained on dangerous goods who is working in the airport. It is a mandatory requirement. So this, over a period of time, gets you trained on different kinds of safety aspects.
Thank you so much, sir. I believe Professor Hornabio wants to speak, so you may go ahead, sir.
It's me, right? You're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay. About very interesting, all of you presentations, but the topic of this around privatization of aircraft. Okay. I am not the youngest of us all today. I have traveled a lot. I've seen many privatized and non-privatized aircraft in my life because due to my work, international aviation financing, I travel a lot. Okay. But in addition, I did as a student in law school work at passenger handling services at Amsterdam Airport for about 4 years to make some money. So I worked at airports and I traveled a lot. Privatized in, let's say, or let's call them developed nations, European Union. In my country, Amsterdam is a horror story for consumers, for passengers. And I think it's extremely unsafe what's happening at Amsterdam Airport before COVID, before the virus crisis. Last time I traveled was in February this year, just before it was starting. I don't know what's happening today. Another example of a privatized airport is Vienna. It's like a labyrinth. It is extremely dangerous as far as I'm concerned. You go up and down staircases, small elevators. How is this possible? But the most dangerous one in my book is traveling via Helsinki, Finland. If something happens there, a catastrophe, whatever kind, passengers, people working there, cannot go anywhere to hide. Even the crew of, what do you call it, Finnair apologizes when you have to change aircraft at Helsinki Airport, which is famous for continuing flight from Europe to Asia and back. It is so dangerous in my book. How is this possible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a wonderful experience for you and for us to learn from your travel experiences. Yeah. Uh, it is expected that the regulator, remember in my presentations, I said that an objective and safety oriented regulator, along with a safety focused and proactive airport operator, together as a team will develop a program that makes passenger safety as priority number one. However, these airports may not necessarily have been looked at or managed with no offense meant to any of these airports or their management guys, that the passenger safety should be taken to that level, that they should live up to their reputation as being one of the leading airports or one of the fine connecting airports in the world. I haven't been to them except Amsterdam. Amsterdam years ago I passed through, and then it was not too bad then for me. Maybe I was too young, and I could find my way. But Helsinki, etc., I haven't been at all, so I don't know really how it is functioning. Having said that, yes, it is part of one of the basic tenets in airport planning and engineering that we learn, and I'm sure airport operations guys, wherever they come from, they would have been trained to look at what is thing that is easily assimilated by the traveling public when they're running through. You'll be able to identify the sense, the gate, where they have to go, where they have to go look for help, etc., etc. So signages, the layout, everything is important. If that has not been addressed properly, then I think it is there is a bit of work for somebody else to do at this point in time. I won't um, hold a candle for them, but I wouldn't even sort of say anything against in sense that looks like there is work that needed to be done. There are airports which are very large. Like for instance, I know that somebody, in fact, some years ago, Air India pilots, our own, they complained that the New Delhi airport had long walking distances. They would be tired by the time they reached the aircraft. I thought they were supposed to be physically fit. Having said that, nevertheless, it is a fact that the airports wanting to have large number of passengers coming in, large number of aircraft coming in, large aircraft coming in, therefore larger spacings apart. So it means that the aircraft is very sprawling and wide out. And with that, you do have a sort of a situation wherein you may get lost if it's not properly guided. The passenger is not properly guided, or facilitations are not provided. Like for instance, I do know that yes, at Delhi airport, they do have these buggies, the golf carts, waiting to transport people who need help to go from one gate to the other if it is far off, or if they're unable to walk. So these are all small things, but then they go a long way in making the passage through the airport very comfortable, particularly for the aged and the sort of physically challenged people. That is part of the airport management. The airport looks for it, airport says we must provide. Let me also tell you, because I was part of the International Airport Authority of India, then we didn't have much of a concept about how to facilitate the travel or passage of physically challenged people. We had not provided ramps. Years later, towards the end of my tenure there, I stayed there only for 15 years, we did started providing a makeshift ramp so that, of course, with concrete, not wooden, which would be wobbly, so that, these people could also go through, the wheelchairs could be sort of wheeled out carefully instead of being lifted and put down on the ground because of two steps. So things have moved from there. Today, I'm sure all of this, whether it is sort of elevators or anything you need to take to go to higher level, like London Heathrow Terminal 5 has got a lot of things to pass through before you come to the sort of the security hold area or transit areas. So again, each airport is different from the other. Everyone cannot be as it is today in Singapore, for instance, because I pass through multiple times, twice a year. So that's a different issue. But I think the airport management needs to be a little more aware of the needs of the traveling public, particularly the people who need help, particularly the elderly people and the physically challenged people. You're right, sir. I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Huh? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much to everyone in this session. We have come to the end of the session. I would like to extend my gratitude towards Professor Anna Masuti, Mr. Arun Rao, and Mr. Srinivasan for your insights on the topic. I'd also like to thank Professor Bhatt and Professor Honorbeer for contributing to the discussion.